guys, I want to tell you about Mando. It's the whole body deodorant you can use anywhere. Mando was created by a doctor who saw how regular BO was getting misdiagnosed and mistreated. Clinically proven. Mando will keep you fresher longer than soap alone. Check this out. Mando Solid Stick is powered by mandelic acid, crushing odor before it even starts. They've got an aluminum-free spray as well for those hard-to-reach spots. And forget about parabens and baking soda. Mando is free of all that junk. You can choose from fresh scents like bourbon leather, cloverwood, Mount Fuji, or Pro Sport. Me, I'm a bourbon leather guy. I gotta tell you, it's bold and strong, just how I like it. If you're new to Mando, let me suggest, try the starter pack. You get a solid stick. It comes with a cream tube and 2 free products of your choice. Plus, when you use my code, you will get free shipping. When you check out, just use the code CHAEL. That'll get you $5 off, which is over 40% off, plus the free shipping I mentioned. So hit up shopmando, shopmando.com. Use code CHAEL and use Mando head to toe. Guys, Mando's got you covered, and frankly, so's Uncle Chael. Jon Jones, UFC, Tom Aspinall, Alex Pereira. How would you guys play this? If you were to lay out the different possible integers of how this could be played, right? And you're limited to the confines of your own creativity. That's what makes negotiations so hard. When you get somebody that isn't overly creative, they can't plan ahead of time. It's hard. Well, if he does this and I'll do this, right? When you start looking at chess and you start really pulling yourself back and all of a sudden you're playing 3D chess, I'm just wondering if we're just a few people talking. What are the possible different ways this could unfold? Because Tom Aspinall not being stripped, I'm the only one talking about it. You guys as the audience have made it very clear you don't care. And there's sometimes it's hard for me to get the hint. When they took the belt off of Charles Oliveira, that was one of the most fascinating topics to me, which from a legal perspective never got challenged. But I cared, and I kept bringing to you day after day after day what the problems, if that had been challenged, could possibly bring. And I finally had to take it from you. Chael, move on. We don't care. I'm getting that way, just so you understand. I am understanding that you don't care if Tom is interim champion or not. But the reason I care, while we fiercely adhere to the rules that we make up on the spot, particularly as it has to do with interim status, you can't have both. Those aren't Chael's rules. That's not company rules. That's linguistics rules. You cannot have an undisputed champion in the presence of an interim champion. So if Tom is the interim champion, what, I ask you, is Jon? What did Jon just fight for? What belt did they put around his waist? The next time Jon fights, that belt is the one on the line. So what is that belt called? And that does lie a problem. You likely would say undisputed. You likely would. I would stand up before the court and I would read the definition of undisputed for you, and you'd realize that's not possible. But they didn't strip Tom. Now, that could mean a couple of things, okay? That could mean that we are going to adhere to the rule, which is the healthy interim champion fights a healthy undisputed champion. An interim title, at a minimum, is a number 1 contenders card. Okay, I hear you on that. And I do feel that that would still hold. And in case you wanted to go back to Madison Square Garden and just say, well, how can Tom be there as Jon's fighting? There actually is a reasonable answer, which is Jon and Stipe were signed. There was an injury. We always show grace to injured fighters. So in the meanwhile, the interim champion came, and that's where Tom's at. But we took the bout that we were going to do while we're showing grace, and we still just carried on with our plans. It just so happens we also have an interim title to have to worry about. Okay, great. But I can't help but feel maybe that isn't the only reason. I mean, we did not strip Tom, which has to be done. It's not a nice guy. There's not heart or concern with it. You can't have an interim while you have an undisputed. So let's go ahead and unify them, right? Okay. Well, that's where the problem is. That's where we're at right now. The negotiation to get that done is wherein lies the problem. Now, if Tom had in fact been stripped, The UFC does not like vacant titles. I don't know if there's number and data financially that could support that. I can just tell you, policy-wise, they do not like vacant titles. So if you can't come to terms with Jon, no problem. Because we've already got our guy. And we elevate that to undisputed. I get where that would have been the plan all along, and that plan even would have been enacted had Jon not come back. When he come back, interim doesn't exist, except in this case, it does. So as you're looking at that, do you keep the belt on Tom as a way of saying, all right, we've got our match. We cannot go to number 3 or number 4, which we do all the time. We can't move down. We have to go to our interim champion. Let's get you guys together, and off we go. Is that what it is? Or does it take a little bit of power away from Jon? I mean, in all fairness, when you have an undisputed champion, Jon can't go to somebody else and go, well, hey, there's other great fights, and this guy's really good. He just can't. We can't skip that guy. So what's your school of thought as to why they did it? Now, let's say that you're Jon, and Jon's at 2 options right now. Fight Tom, don't fight. Those are the 2 options. Now, generally, there would be 3. For every other champion in our organization right now, as a matter of fact, they have 3. Don't fight. Fight who you're being asked to fight. Create another fight. And that ability's been taken from Jones. Jones will not be in there opposite anybody except for Tom. And he could choose to not fight, but you see the unlikelihood of that. Now, if that statement that I just made is completely true, why did I bother making it? Well, because it's not completely true. Jon could always go back to 205 pounds. That's the dark horse that people are discussing. They boxed Jon in, or what Jon felt was boxed in at one point. And Jon did the one thing they said he'll never do, which is took the belt off and walked away from it. No one saw that coming. He did it. It's not a matter of would Jon do that. Jon's already done that. So it has to be a consideration. I mean, if the Piera army really spoke up, and I've noticed lately they're not. But I don't know how badly Piera wants to fight Ankalaev. I mean, not for nothing, I just know that it brings in the kind of attention that Piera has enjoyed and would like to have. In fact, if you could sign on to fight Ankalaev, or you could entice Jon Jones to come down and do that fight, I think that Piera would be more in line for that, I'm guessing. But what do you do if you're the UFC? If you're the UFC, what plays could you make? I had an incredible thought brought to me. I had this incredible thought right after Marcus Lewis said it to me. Marcus said, this whole this whole Francis business, this whole cross promotion. Marcus said, do it. But do it with Tom. Send Tom. Give Tom the carve out. Let Tom go fight Francis. A one-off. He comes right back. Win or lose, he comes right back. It's a one-off. That's very interesting. That's a very interesting thing to do. The unlikeliness of it, I get, is flashing and blinking in your eyes. But do you guys understand oil? Do any of you ever try to make money in oil? Oh, the barge got shut off and we're going to have low amounts of oil. Now, oil is what's called a futures market. So if you want the price of oil to sink overnight, you can do that without a drop of oil. You can just put out a press release that you're going to release 1 billion barrels from your reserve. It's a futures market. Whatever's going on now, it's in the future. And in theory, at least, if you flooded 1 billion barrels of oil into the market, it is going to sink the price because you have supply and demand. You don't actually have to open a spigot. And the day that you do, that doesn't drop oil prices. It's the day you give the world the perception of more oil. And I'm only sharing for you, like, you wouldn't actually have to give Tom. You would just have to creatively release to the media that you're considering giving Tom. And the world does change pretty quick. Jon Jones hasn't hid anything. Jon's been very transparent with you guys to say this is about money. He was very open with you guys at 205 pounds. He called his bluff and told him, no, you won't do any of those things. And he spent 3 years and he did them. And he did them somewhat effectively. Like when Jon came back, it's when everyone kind of realized, hey, we're glad Jon's back. So, I mean, on any bluff, right, you got to be ready. You got to be ready if the guy calls it. Jon got called, and he sat without a paycheck for 3 years, and his skills somehow got better. I mean, he's having easier fights now, right up a weight class. And I'm only sharing for you, like, when Jon bluffs and says he'll walk, you can't rule that out. And there isn't many other opponents that are that interesting. And the way Jon is paid through participation, there is no fight like Aspinall. Jon's got as far as to say he believes that will be the biggest heavyweight fight of all time. I think he's right. But you can't front load those things. You can't guarantee it. It's got to be a cut of the business. I'll give you a great example, but what was supposed to be the biggest fight of all time and would have been the biggest fight of all time, what should have been the biggest fight of all time, and everybody did everything they were supposed to do except for the players. Francis Ngannou, Ciryl gone. If you were to go back in time, Francis Ngannou, Ciryl gone, undisputed champion, interim champion, former teammates, head coach chose one, he rolled with gone. Like, if you were to tell that story, there has never been a bigger or better story, but the numbers sucked. There's bad numbers, guys. If the numbers were bad, I'd say bad. It's a whole other level. But the one unforeseen was what a terrible job those two guys, Gone and Francis, when you're sitting down and you're doing the math on this and you're giving projections for the night, the one unforeseen is what a terrible job those two guys were going to do. They were incentivized to do a great job. So you just assume. And I have to tell you, while I do think that Jon's right, I think Jon and Tom, in any reasonable walk of life, Jon doing what he's been doing pretty well lately, Tom doing what he's been doing pretty well lately. But if you remove Tom from that equation, the one that gets hurt is Jon. The way Jon's contract has worked, the one that gets hurt is Jon. If you remove Jon from the equation, the way Tom's contract works, it doesn't get hurt. As a matter of fact, he's likely in for his biggest payday, which is also what a fight against Jones would represent, but just in more. So the mere speculation that you were going to give a carve-out to your heavyweight champion, that mere speculation would change the attitudes and go, hey, wait a minute. I need that guy. Anyone else on this roster but that guy cost me millions with an S, millions of dollars. As of right now, it's looked at and said, well, there's nowhere for him to go. Nowhere for me to go, nowhere for him to go. But that isn't totally true, is it? Headline alone, carve out, Aspinall versus Francis. We're just folks talking. But it's pretty interesting, isn't it?